Hi, happy Friday, everybody. So excited to talk today about Chile and also to be doing our first destination debrief from our new Fora offices. All right, so today we are talking about Chile, one of my favorite destinations. This is going to be more of like an itinerary focused training because you don't really go to Chile for the hotels as much as I really love the lodges here. Like, really, there are some amazing properties, but you go there to do the stuff. And this is really one of those like ultimate bucket list destinations that I think a lot of people think about. I want to go to Patagonia. I want to go to the Atacama Desert. And it's not actually as hard to get to as you think. So I'm excited to walk you guys through what are the logistics of how to do Chile, depending on how much time your clients have and where to stay. Obviously, will always be included. Okay, getting there. You get there through Santiago. If that's not obvious, Santiago is the capital that is in the middle of a very long and skinny country. Santiago is also the hub for almost all of the flights. So if you are going down into southern Patagonia to Torres del Paine, you're flying into Punta Arenas or Puerto Natales. You're flying there from Santiago. If you are going up to the Atacama Desert we're going to fly into Calama. That is a flight from Santiago. If you want to go from one to the other, you're going to fly through Santiago. So the travel days can be long. Drive times are typically pretty long too. Let me tell you that by the time I ended my trip there, I was like, oh, it's only a 2-hour drive. Oh, that's nothing. Like 2 hours becomes a very normal thing. So just you want to manage expectations that clients have around sort of travel days and try to limit the amount of travel days that are back to back because they can be quite long. Some people do combine Chile with Argentina. You can see Chile long and skinny, Argentina much bigger, and it's right there. You can do that. You can do land crossings, crossing across from, say, northern Patagonia, the Lakes region on the Chilean side, over into Bariloche on the Argentine side. I typically say, like, keep your itinerary to one country. There's so much to do in Chile. You don't like really need to combine it with Argentina, and ditto. So much to do in Argentina. Spend your time there exploring that country. So you can combine them. And obviously plenty of flights between Santiago and Buenos Aires. But I would say best practice is keep your itinerary in one country. Best time to visit. All right, they are flip season from us. So our winter is their summer. That is the best time to go because when you're going down to Patagonia, which most people want to do when they're doing Chile, you have even in the middle of their summer, you still can have quite a range of temperatures. You have 4 seasons in one day. You always want to be packing and wearing layers. And during the winter, it's just so cold and so snowy that some of the lodges even close down. So you can go during the summer. If you're going in our summer, that's their winter. That's actually a great time to go skiing. So if you have clients who are big skiers, there actually is great skiing. Look at Portillo, and that's for somebody who wants to go down in the summer. Most people are going to be traveling from October through April. As I said, the weather in Chile is pretty unpredictable. The one thing to note is that the Atacama Desert, it is the driest desert on earth, which means that when it does rain, it doesn't handle it very well. Clients may have seen reports of flooding or things that happen every now and then because if they do get a big rain up there, it does tend to have some flash flooding. That is something that can affect travel, but it's not typically it's not something you should like imagine will always happen the same way we expect hurricane season, but it's certainly like if they Google it, they'll see it. Top hotels booked. These are really good ones. Singular in Patagonia. This is one of my favorite stops if somebody is flying into Punta Arenas and then moving up to Torres del Paine because it's quite a long drive, about 5 hours. So Singular is one of my favorite places to put people for a couple nights. Obviously, Explora, Torres del Paine. This was like the pioneer of Patagonia. We'll talk more about that. And then just a few more lodges, all of which we will touch on later. So yeah, you know what that tells me? Our agents have really good taste and are booking the right places. Now, do you need a DMC in Chile? Probably yes. The thing about putting together a Chilean trip for your clients is that it really is almost more about the puzzle piece of availability. It's not really about like they have to stay at Explora over Tierra or Tierra over Awasi or Awasi over something else. They're all like pretty great in terms of properties. I actually try not to get anybody too hooked on the idea of one particular lodge because they are small and they fill up. So the way that you're piecing together your trip is really like, when can I get availability in Atacama? When can I get availability in Torres del Paine? How am I piecing this together? The DMCs are really like they're our best help on the ground because you can say, this is how much time they've got. This is kind of what we think in terms of budget. This is what they're interested in doing. And then your DMC goes in and really sort of sorts it all out. I will say, I will mention this probably a few times. I was in Chile in 2019 when the government collapsed and the whole country shut down. I ended up spending an inordinate amount of time in northern Patagonia, which means I'm deeply familiar with some of these properties, but I also saw exactly why you want to have a DMC. What happened in 2019 is not going to, knock on wood, happen again. But things do change. Flights get canceled. There's a rain somewhere. The road changes. Whatever it is, that's where DMC can help your clients on the ground. So they're not calling you and saying, "Wait a minute, my flight got changed. They canceled it into Puerto Natales. It's into Punta Arenas. I need to change my transfer." DMCs will take care of that. For a sense of cost, because Chile is not inexpensive. If you're like a backpacker and you're going to be camping, sure, you can do it inexpensively. When it comes to these higher end lodges and sort of the way that most of our travelers are going, it's not cheap. To give you a sense of the pricing, it's around, call it like $500 per person per day. Think of this really actually quite similar to what we talked about with Kenya. Kind of $1,000 a day is really what you should think about as sort of entry level pricing for a couple. But remember that all of these are all inclusive lodges, or most of them with the are all inclusive lodges. So that's your meals are included. Now, why Chile? It is all about nature here. It is not about animals. This is not a place you come for safari and you're seeing a lot of animals, although there is obviously wonderful wildlife here. Really, you are coming to Chile to be active, be outdoors, and see incredible scenery. So people who love hiking, love nature, love sort of geology, this is the place to go. The people who want to just sit around and go to a spa, probably not a great choice for them, although I do highly recommend using the spas at these lodges because your legs will be tired from all the hiking. People who want nightlife, not for them. You're not going out to eat and doing a scene. This is a place where your hiking boots is kind of what you need to pack. Leave the heels at home. But for those who want that kind of trip, there's almost no better place. It really is totally spectacular. All right, we're going to go over Santiago very briefly because most people don't spend a lot of time here. Great city. If you have a couple days to spend there, that's fine. I would put your time more towards other places. But if you are going to spend a few nights in the city, great food, sort of a nice place to organize yourself before you launch off into other spots. And certainly if somebody's trying to keep their budget down a little bit, it's a lot less expensive to be based here. So instead of going out and staying in wine country, they could stay here and go out and do a day to explore. We love the singular Santiago. This is the sister hotel of the one that I mentioned down in Patagonia, in a great neighborhood, super designy and cool boutique. It's great. Also, we book a lot of Ritz-Carlton and Mandarin Oriental. Those are a little bit more business, whereas this feels a little bit more leisure, but great hotel to know about. I will say something that no one probably has ever said on a Fora destination training, but there is a Holiday Inn at the airport. It's totally fine. If you have clients landing late at night and they have an early flight, you walk out of the terminal, the Holiday Inn is like directly across the terminal. It's totally decent. You don't need to send people into the city for the night if all they're doing is sleeping there. Holiday Inn made it into a destination training. All right, so this is a little bit of a guide you can use if you do have clients spending time in Santiago. It's great to be able to throw them a few ideas of what is going on, but let's really focus on what's happening outside of Santiago. So start with the Atacama Desert. One thing to note, the Atacama Desert, this is up north. You are moving up towards the border with Bolivia. This is a very high altitude destination, so you will feel the impact of altitude. This is also the driest desert on earth, so you need to drink a lot of water. This is also, Chile has a big mining industry, and the mining is all done around Calama, which is the city that you're flying into. No one told me that. The reason I'm telling you that is I got on the plane and I was like the only woman on the plane and I didn't understand who all these big dudes were. And it turns out they're all miners. So just so that is what the planes are like going up there. So people understand kind of what is the industry that is happening. You're going to land in Calama, and then I think it's about an hour and a half out to San Pedro. San Pedro is the little town. It is a super cute little town. It's almost like, I don't know, before Tulum was what Tulum is now, but like in the desert, kind of cute, some cafes, lots of little shops where you can go and buy something for your hiking. It's kind of cute and funky. You don't need to spend a lot of time in there. I really recommend everybody go and they'll just pop in a bit. You will have a lot of activities here for clients. really implore them, and the lodges will help you to plan based on their fitness level. Now, you don't have to be like a mountaineer in order to go to anywhere in Chile, but that altitude will get you. So, usually, what the lodges do and what you can help sort of point your clients towards is you want to ramp up as you go and as you acclimate to the altitude. So, you are going to have some amazing hiking. One of my favorite places is Moon Valley. It really literally looks like the moon. There's a lot of sort of canyons you can go into, and then you go out to the salt flats and watch the sunset, and it's incredible. There's like flamingos, and it's just, there's photography. Actually, that is the one other thing. If people are into photography, they need to go up here because you will see things that just look almost otherworldly. Where to stay? There's essentially four main hotels people use: Nayara, Tierra, Awasi, and Explora. You are going to hear the last three of those over and over again because they are sort of the places throughout Chile. If you are not using a DMC, you can book an entire Tierra itinerary or an Awasi itinerary, and you can work just with them if you're not mixing and matching, FYI. So Nayara, Alto, Atacama. Probably a lot of you know Nayara Tented Camp, one of our favorite spots in Costa Rica. They have started expanding. They've expanded into Panama. They have Nayara Bocas del Toro. And then they took over my favorite place. I shouldn't say favorite. I'm not supposed to pick favorites. But the place, one of the places I love up in Atacama, which is Alto Atacama. Why do I love this place so much? You can look and see it's not like the room is super fancy. And actually, if people are very picky, I would say there's 3 categories of room. Put them in the largest room, because it has more light in it. These are actually built to mimic how sort of the indigenous people live. So they're supposed to be dark and cozy and the kind of place like you go to sleep when the lights go down and you wake up when the sun comes up. One of the things that I think is really neat for couples is that there's not one main pool. There's a bunch of little different pools throughout the property. And so you kind of have your own privacy and space. So if you've got honeymooners who are going to be out and trekking and then want to come home and have sort of relaxing time with a drink in the afternoon, Alto is a great one to do. It is outside of town. They can drive you into town. I think it took like 10 minutes, so not far. Tierra is really exciting because Tierra has just gone through a huge renovation and is reopening. This is one where I tend to put people who want to be a little bit more social. It's got a gorgeous communal pool. So pool, infinity pool, views out towards the mountains. It also has a really big main lobby area, like a map area where you can look and see what you're doing, a bar. This is more for the place where I feel like if you have families that are traveling together or, like just people with kids in general, I would say, by the way, for families, probably like 10 and up for Chile, just because the long drives and the level of activities. You want to have kids that can kind of keep up. But I love Tierra for that more sort of social vibe. It's still beautiful for couples who are looking for something more romantic. Again, don't get fixated on which hotel you're talking about, but they are very different vibes and just renovated. So here's a bit about some of the activities. Other thing I love about booking Chile is you don't have to really worry about this. You need to know enough to talk to your clients about what they're going to do in different places, but you don't actually plan it because everything is a bit weather dependent and a bit dependent on how they're feeling. So every night you're at your lodge, if you're sitting there down to dinner, there's good people are going to come around and go, hey, what do you want to do tomorrow? And the guides are going to figure it out. So once you've got it booked, they're off to the races on their own. And that makes it, like, frankly, pretty easy on you as an advisor and really great for you as a client that you don't have to like plan so much out before you get there. More about what to do. The horseback riding, I should point out, not all of the places offer horseback riding. Explora does offer horseback riding, some don't. If horses are really important to your clients, make sure to keep that in mind. There is like an ecological impact on the environment with the salt flats and the horses. So some lodges have chosen not to do that. So just remember that if horses matter, make sure the lodge offers it. All right. So Atacama Desert, I will say if somebody has not been to Chile before and they're like, I've got 5 days, I'm going to send them to Atacama over everywhere else. That is the one that is sort of, it's not so hard to get to. Feels super impactful. Like you've gone and seen something incredibly cool and incredibly different. So I like to put Atacama there first because people think if I've only got a short amount of time, I'm going to Patagonia. And I would say, if you've got a short amount of time, go north. That's going to be your first introduction into Chile. So now let's talk about moving south. So Atacama, right up at the top of that long and skinny country. Santiago then is south of that. And now we're moving down into Patagonia, so the Lake District.
You're not driving these distances. These are very long distances. I actually looked at how long it would take me to drive from like Puerto Montt in northern Patagonia to Santiago, and I think it was like 24 hours or something. So you're definitely flying between these. For people who are super high flyers, you can charter flights. It is expensive because of weather. You need to have a pretty serious jet to land in some of these places. So if you have clients that are saying, could I charter to avoid having to like stop in Santiago on the way from Atacama? Yes, you can, but you really do have to be ready to spend quite a bit because it's not going to be like a tiny plane. Northern Patagonia is really interesting because it looks entirely different. Southern Patagonia is like icebergs and, sort of these jagged peaks. Northern Patagonia is lakes and volcanoes, still snow, obviously, on the volcanoes, even during the warmer months, but it's a little bit more gentle. There's also like a big German heritage. So there's this one area, which I think we have in here that we're going to talk about, that looks like a little like town out of the Alps. So it's interesting just from an architectural standpoint and history. All right, let's start by talking about Awa. I love this hotel. This is where I spent my first night when the country shut down. It is near Puerto Varas, which is that sort of German influenced town that's really fun to see, and it is right on the lake. So it is a sort of a boutique hotel. This is not a big lodge. You could drive in. You can take walks from there. There's like a sort of a modern sort of road and a sidewalk. You can go out. It has a deck and a dock that goes into the water. So there's a lot that you can do right there. I'd say this is like a 2-night stay. If you have anybody combining with Argentina, this is also a good stop between Chile and then moving on into Bariloche. Great food, beautiful contemporary rooms. So if they've been out somewhere really rugged, this is a great place to stop, and pretty reasonably priced too. So again, if you're trying to think how to balance some of the more expensive lodges, this is a really good one. And obviously, like, look at these views. They're amazing. This is maybe one of my favorite properties I've ever been to in the whole world. Not everyone needs to go to Vera Vera, but anyone who has time in their itinerary should. This is a little bit farther inland, a little bit away from the coast, and this is in like firmly in the middle of the Lake District. I would describe it as kind of like a blackberry farm of South America. They do have a farm. They make their own cheese. There's sort of pastures. There's a river that goes through. So if you're looking at that room, you're actually looking out at a river. There are horses that will just like wander past your window. It is impeccable design. It's totally incredible. And I love it, love it, love it. It's great as a last stop on a trip because while there are activities, so you can drive from there and go hiking on a volcano, you do a river float just that leaves right from there. It's a little less sort of rugged in terms of what you're doing. The food and the wine are amazing. This is a great place to sort of wind down a trip a bit. So something to know. If you were driving from here over to where Awa was, that's about, I think it's like 4 to 5 hours. So these distances again are long, and you can expand an itinerary into like as much time as somebody has to travel. If I had to pick the one place that you were ending a long trip for somebody who's got flexibility in terms of time, it's going to be either here or Vic, which is in the wine region, which we're going to talk about later. All right. So again, you can actually ski here as well. I know we talked about skiing in Portillo, which is closer to Santiago. You can ski the volcano here if you're that kind of person, which is really cool. There's some hot springs, and then touring around some of these villages. But again, this place, it just depends on what somebody wants. You can have a very packed itinerary, or you can be more chill. One hotel that we don't have listed in here because we can't possibly list them all, but I wanted to mention is Mari Mari, not to be confused with Vera Vera. I don't know why we have all these names. Mari Mari is on the coast, like actually on the water. Remember that one as a place. It is actual like houses. So each of them has 3-4 bedrooms, not super modern design, the same way that you get at Vera Vera or with Awa. But if you have a multi-gen and they don't want to do so much driving, Mari Mari is a place where they have horses on property, they have hiking on property, they have a farm on property. It's a lot that you can do without having to do the long drives to stuff. So I like to mention that one too. Moving into Southern Patagonia. This is where everybody wants to go. These are the peaks that everybody sees and they want to go and see them. And of course they do. It's amazing. When you're looking at this map here on the left, you can see that we're down south. We are right at the border, kind of Argentina. Puerto Natales is the preferred airport. If they can get a flight into Puerto Natales, fantastic, because as you can see, you are much closer to Torres del Paine. You're only about 3-ish hours there. Punta Arenas is the more common airport that ends up being used. That is farther south. There are sometimes changes where it's like, oh, the weather didn't let us land in Puerto Natales. We're going to fly to Punta Arenas. Punta Arenas is about a 5-hour drive from Torres del Paine. There's a lot of driving in Chile. Get used to it. Don't let it scare you off, but just so that you understand. And you can actually see here, just north, if you see Calafate, when we talk about southern Patagonia and Argentina, you're often talking about what's happening around Calafate. So you can see how close you are here. But I should say close on the map. You're not close if you're driving. You're not going to drive. All right, let's talk about Explora. This was truly like the pioneer of travel down here. They are an incredible company. If you don't know about Explora, please look into them. They are all about sustainability and nature and conservation. What they build are like beautiful, comfortable lodges, but they don't care about it being, the fanciest place anybody's ever been, even though the fanciest people will come here. What makes people love this company so much, aside from just their general like ethos, is their guides and their activities. They have fantastic guides and they do fantastic trekking and trips. Explora is also the only one of these lodges that is actually within the Torres del Paine National Park. What does that mean? It means it's harder to get there. It's a longer drive to get there versus some of the other ones, but it means you're within the park. Now you're like going to do these drives one way or another. If you're staying outside the park, you're going to drive in. If you're staying here, you're already there, but you've done the drive to get there. So you will do the drives, and not all the activities are actually within the national park, but this is kind of the one that everyone's heard of, and for good reason. We love it. Can you helicopter in is a question that comes up often with some of these sort of fanciest people. And the answer is yes, weather dependent. And I have had weather cancel those helicopters. So just know it's Patagonia. It's like Alaska, like everything's weather dependent. Now, Awasi is one of the newcomers down here. Awasi is if somebody wants guaranteed everything private, and this is what the Awasi brand is known for. Everything else in all these lodges, you're in small groups when you're doing your activities. That's fine. They're always going to match it up. They're never going to put the like super trekker with the person who wants a like more relaxed walk. They're always matching these up. So you're in small groups. I actually think it's really great because you end up like connecting with people who are pretty interesting. Anybody who's like going to these places is pretty cool. And particularly if you're a solo traveler, that can be awesome too, because you end up having like a bit of social connection just on your days. So if you've got like someone who's like, I just want to get away by myself, but I don't want to be like just sitting somewhere by myself, the Chile is amazing. Awasi is guaranteed private everything. So private driver, private guide, all of that is just for yourself. So if you've got people who are looking for more privacy, then Awasi is the place to go. Very small lodge, not always easy to get availability. It's a series of, I can't remember how, not many 1-bedroom, all individual houses, and then a couple 2-bedrooms. There is a minimum age for children. Even if you have the private guide and all of that. I can't remember what the minimum age is, but I think it's like 10 or 12. So this is not for like little kids, not that most people are trying to bring them down here, but make sure you check the minimum surroundings. I would say this is like one of the more romantic properties versus Explora's like rugged. Now, Singular, we mentioned this earlier. This is really different. You can see it's coastal. This is actually in an old canning factory. So it's got all this history of like what Patagonia used to be. The pictures do not do this justice. People go here, people who are total design junkies go here and are like, oh my God, it's like my favorite place I've ever been in the entire world. So although it doesn't look like much, industrial chic is the right way to describe it. Definitely clients are going to want to do a day on the water here. Again, it's all weather dependent. So the lodge will help figure out which day that's going to be, but you can just give them a heads up. Like you're probably going to want to do a boat tour to see a bit of the coast, and the lodge can help sort out which day that's going to be. But I like to give people, if they can, 2 nights here. Ideally, you're like flying down, whether it's into Puerto Natales, in which case you're very close to Singular, or into Punta Arenas, in which case it's only a 2-hour drive. You can use that to break up the trip into Torres del Paine, or on the reverse to break it up. What are you doing? You're walking up mountains, around glaciers. You're doing all of that. The W trek is going to come up a lot if people are seriously into hiking, because this is a very famous trek. Think you can do it in one day, or you can do longer versions of it. Like you can do a portion of it at least in one day from the lodges. If you have somebody who wants to do like a real camping experience and go out there, there are suppliers that can do that. It's very specialized, but it is possible if they want to do like a much bigger version of the W and out there and stay out there. But really what you're doing here is you're outdoors. So photography is amazing. There is some wildlife, but
and is all about active adventure. Question that comes up a lot is multi-gens. What do you do with like the multi-gen that wants to go here? These lodges are really beautiful. So if you've like grandma and grandpa that like don't want to be as active, there are gentler walks. Truly, you don't have to be able to climb up that mountain right there. And so you can actually have something where you've got the teenagers and mom and dad kind of doing whatever, and then you've got grandparents being a little bit more chill. So know that it can be a little bit flexible. For those who want to extend, and this is a great option for the multi-gens, Patagonia Cruises. This is a way for you to actually get to see more of the coast and to sort of experience more of what's out there without being quite as active. There are also cruises that will go down from here into Antarctica. One of our favorites is Australis. Take a look at them. They're really great. This is an expedition cruise. This is not a super luxury cruise. So depending on, what's their preference, if there are like all of the brands that are here, just make sure that folks know this is not a Mediterranean cruise. It is about being in these like epic landscapes. A little bit more about what to do if you're on a cruise. All right, let's move up into the Chilean wine region, because this is something that is really great, especially at the end of a trip. So like I said, I love Vera for ending a trip. I love the wine region too for ending the trip. The big bonus to the wine region is it is drive distance from Santiago. So if you have had this whole trip all over the place, you can actually come back and do your final stop at a hotel where then you will drive to Santiago and be able to fly out from there. So that saves your final day from being like, I'm flying here to here and here to here and then home. So it just makes the trip home a little bit easier. There's also some really cool stuff. Like I wish I knew more about wine. Jake here is obviously our wine person. But one of the things that I found out is Carmenere is this grape, which is very typical, sort of is like the Chilean grape. And it was thought to be gone and extinct because of a plague. And then it was rediscovered in Chile. Chile is very careful about their nature and about sort of impact of different sort of agricultural things coming in. And so it's really protected something that then the world thought was gone and is actually still here. And you can go and like learn about the grape. Even if you're not a big wine person, it's just sort of interesting to know about the history of it. Also interesting is this hotel. I'm obsessed. It is, if you know about the Vic family of hotels, which is owned by the Vic family, they have 3 hotels in Uruguay and 1 in Milan, and they are super, super into art. So many of their hotels, not all of them, but many of their hotels, Vic Chile included, the rooms are different. So each room is done by different designers, have different artists. They're kind of weird and funky. So that one has a boxing glove in it. Mine had this like crazy wall in it. People end up just taking each other around and be like, hey, do you want to see my room? Do you want to see my room? It's sort of like everybody opens up their doors. It creates this really fun communal vibe because the rooms are super unique and different. The food is also really good here. And I would say, although Chile is known for excellent wine, it is not really known for like sort of like amazing sort of food the same way that Argentina gets that reputation. The food is very good, but the food here feels a little bit more gourmet. So especially for like a honeymooning couple or anniversary, something special, this is a place that they can end and feel kind of taken care of. The other thing that I like so much about this is that, again, there's activities on property. You get very used to these long drives for your activities in Chile, but at Vic, you are set in a vineyard. You can go and visit their winery, which is all sustainable. It's really interesting. Like you can science nerd out on it. You can also take bikes and go out for bike rides through the vineyards. You can go hiking, all of that right there. Something really cool that they do if you have families is that they'll do in a forest nearby, they'll do paintball. So if you've got somebody who's like a family with some teenagers, they can actually go have a paintball game in a forest nearby. So they can do that kind of fun stuff. And big, beautiful pool for those who are worn out and just want to sit down for a minute. A really great one to know about. When I went here, Leslie, who you all know, Leslie loves this place. And I was like, I don't know. Am I like going to go all the way to Chile to just, to go sit at like a vineyard? I can go to Napa. And then I ended up going there because, hey, I had time. I couldn't really move around so much outside to get out of the country. So I ended up going here, and it was truly one of my favorite stops. A few other hotels just to know about, which we've talked a little bit about Mari Mari. Tierra Chiloé is on an island that is right off of the coast of northern Patagonia. So just another one that's right down in there. 11 Rio Palena, I'm going from the bottom up actually. 11 Rio Palena, 11 experiences. If you aren't familiar with them, take a look. They are mostly exclusive use. So this is for people who have a big budget, but they are like all about sort of incredible
experiences in amazing locations. Iceland, they have a hotel that is not exclusive use. You can just book a room. Bahamas, even they have Bahama House, but you can just book a room there. But the rest of them are really for people who come in and sort of take it over. These are incredible. And there is one in Patagonia. And then Explora Patagonia National Park. The thing that's really neat about this is if you know the story of the North Face founder who ended up moving down to Patagonia, and then he did unfortunately pass away in a kayaking accident on one of the lakes. He and his wife actually donated the land that they'd been buying up to protect to Exploring, or sort of gave it to them to run as a property, as a hospitality sort of venture to help protect it. So this is really this is true sustainability and conservation in practice. And then Tierra Patagonia. We talked about Awasi and we talked about Explora. Tierra is the other one. We talked about their property up in Atacama Desert, which I love. Tierra Patagonia, similarly, it has a slightly more contemporary vibe, gorgeous pool, great spa, sort of nice lobby. It feels a little bit more social. So people who don't want to talk to anybody can go stay in Awasi. People want to talk to folks can do Tierra, and same with Explora. A little bit about things that people like to eat, typical signature dishes to know, dress codes. Leave the heels at home. I'm going to say it again. Leave the heels at home. Don't leave the hiking boots at home. My hiking boots that I own now, I bought in the Santiago airport. And I bought them in the Santiago airport because I came in a pair of sneakers because I was like, I don't need hiking boots. That's fine. And I went up to the Atacama Desert and the guides were like, what is wrong with you? Get a pair of hiking boots. So I ended up buying some in the airport. They're actually really great. But that is really what you need. You need comfortable, broken in hiking boots. So tell clients, buy them at home. Don't wait until you're in the Santiago airport, and wear them around so they're really broken in, because you will be in these boots all day, every day. Nothing is formal. In the evenings in the lodges, people, you might want to bring an extra pair of shoes just to get your feet out of your hiking boots, but it's going to be casual. There's never a need to get dressed up. Sunscreen, sunglasses, hats, all of that. Again, it is high UV because you're at high altitudes and it is very sunny up north. Down the south, layers, and definitely waterproof and windproof. So you're going to want to have the warm stuff as well as a waterproof out layer, because winds and rain can blow through and then blow away. So just make sure you've got that. I do recommend as well that people bring their own backpack. The lodges, they provide a ton, but bring a backpack that actually feels comfortable for hiking so that you have your own, that you can stash it, and then reusable water bottles. No plastic, please. Respect local customs, a few key phrases. Hopefully you guys know a little bit of this. Mate culture. When we were making this, I was like, isn't that only an Argentine thing? And it turns out it's not just an Argentine thing. Southern Chile, they like the mate as well. It's very bitter. Give it a shot if you haven't tried it. And I would recommend bringing your own adapters too. Chilean peso is the currency, but you can use credit cards everywhere. Also, especially if you're traveling throughout these areas, you don't really need to worry so much about cash, because your clients will have already paid. So it's the deposit and then the final payment. So when they get there, they're not really doing so much other than covering incidentals. Wildlife, if you see it, as we talked about in Kenya, stay a safe distance. So a little bit about other things that you can do. We've generally pretty much covered this, but just remember, hiking season is our winter, their summer. Skiing season is our summer, their winter. So depending on what your clients are going for, and again, most of them are going for wanting to go see this, make sure that you are planning that correctly. We included a little bit of film and TV. These are great. Some books to read, and just some things to watch to learn a bit about the region. And then some cultural events and celebrations in case anyone wants to plan around this or wants to not plan around this. I would love to go to the gaucho stuff in Puerto Natales. That would be super, super cool. Where would you add on? Okay, here's a little tip that most people don't know. You can fly. Okay, everybody knows Easter Island. You can fly. Obviously, you can add that on. You got to have a lot of time to do everything we're talking about. If you want to do Atacama and Southern Patagonia and Northern Patagonia and the wine region, and you still have time to go to Easter Island, congratulations. I don't know where you work, but you got a lot of PTO and a lot of money to spend. So that sounds like a great job. Don't lose it. You can fly to Easter Island from Santiago, and then you can actually fly from Easter Island into French Polynesia. So some of the coolest honeymoons I planned for people who are super active is they did Chile, stopped in Easter Island, and then flew into Tahiti and went on to Bora Bora to finish their trip by the beach. How cool is that?
Obviously, Argentina, you can add those on. And then Antarctica. This is the gateway to Antarctica. If you were going to Antarctica, you are either going to leave from Patagonia or you are going to leave from Cape Town if they have something called White Desert where you can fly in. Most of the cruises leave from either Ushuaia in Argentina or Punta Arenas in or Tierra del Fuego. So this is your gateway for Antarctica. Somebody's done Chile. What else should they do? We love Chile. Where else should we go? Here's a few ideas of other places. Obviously, very outdoorsy. The South Island of New Zealand, the fjords, a little bit closer to home, the Rockies. Like I've booked people who have like loved Chile there for something that's a little bit closer. Iceland. Iceland does have those eruptions. It usually does not impact all the travel. And then Alaska. Thanks for joining in. Bye.